the Bottom Line Podcast. I'm Jimmy Finizzi alongside Neil Villapiano. We hope you're doing well. As always, thank you so much for taking some time out of your day to listen to us. We really do appreciate it. Before we get started, questions, opinions, you know the deal. Twitter at BottomLineWMCX, at The MVP Show, and also on Instagram at BottomLineWMCX. Use hashtag BottomLine. Voice message on Anchor, the app, Anchor.fm. You know the deal there. And if you're watching on YouTube, leave a like and a comment down below. Helps out tremendously. And please make sure that you subscribe, as well as on Apple, Google, and Spotify, wherever you listen to podcasts. Just include my first name, Jimmy, when searching for this podcast. But Neil, another new week. How you doing?
I'm doing well. It's a nice day out today. You know, I got off to a good start with the week, which is always important. And just another day in paradise.
Yeah, I can definitely vouch for that. It has been a gorgeous past couple of days here in Jersey, and I'm absolutely loving it, even though it's a little bit warmer than the other day. But you know what? I can't complain too much. At least it's not like scorching hot, even though we are still in summer. But that's
fall is coming. Fall is coming without.
Yes, fall will be here before you know. I can't believe we're almost to September already. I mean, I've told 2020 to kick rocks, and I actually want it to go fast, but I still can't believe we're almost to September. It really is mind-boggling.
Well, I think we have to remember that 2020 is going to be gone soon, but the issues that we have still linger. So
no, that's true.
It may not be just
we can only pray that they will be fixed, hopefully by 2021, which is why I wanted to get here so fast. But anyway,
I agree.
Before we get started with what we want to talk about today, which is the NBA and NHL playoffs, we actually have to give a big thank you, first of all, to our very good friends in First to 11 for allowing us to be a part of their live stream last week. It was an absolute blast, even though Neil and I sucked up the joint at Mario Karts. We still had a blast. And if you want to go catch a replay of Neil and I absolutely sucking and First to 11 dominating, but no, in all seriousness, we had a blast. If you want to go check out the replay, head over to First to 11's YouTube channel and check out their live stream playlist. That's the only way you're going to find that particular one and all their past live streams that they have done. So go check that out. And if you have not checked out our interview with them yet, please go check that out now. It has broke 300 views, which is absolutely mind-boggling to us at least. But for the amount of subscribers we have on YouTube right now, that really is saying a lot for us. So to everybody who has checked it out, the interview we did with First to 11, thank you so much. If you haven't checked it out, please go check it out. I'll leave a link in the description of the YouTube video below, and I'll also leave a link to the interview on Anchor.fm, so you guys can check it out in audio form if you do wish to do so. But again, thank you again to our good friends in First to 11 for allowing us to be a part of their live stream last Thursday, August 13th. We really do appreciate that very, very much. So please make sure you go check that out in our interview with them as well. But with that being said, Neil, we got some playoffs to talk because basketball is back, and that's where we're going to start today. We're going to start with a little NBA, and I'm probably going to get educated here, but again, I know little about basketball. Not like I know nothing about soccer, but basketball, at least I get a little bit of knowledge about. But so the NBA playoffs are officially underway, and at the time of this recording, which is August 18th, 2020, we have the Denver Nuggets having a 1-0 series lead over the Utah Jazz. We have the LA Clippers having a 1-0 series lead over the Dallas Mavericks. We have the Boston Celtics having a 1-0 lead over the Philadelphia 76ers, And then we have the Toronto Raptors having a 1-0 series lead over the Brooklyn Nets. And you have Portland and the Lakers kicking off their series today. I find that to be very, very fascinating. Portland had to have their play-in game against Memphis. Portland won, and now they will face a tough test against the Lakers. And I got to be honest, though.
Yeah.
With the way the Lakers have looked, I don't know, man. This might be a very, very competitive – it might be a very competitive series. And given the fact that Portland still has the Damian Lillard and CJ McCollum show, I mean, it could probably go either way. And from what I've seen from Anthony Davis, I'm not going to talk about LeBron because we all know what LeBron's capable of.
Right.
Anthony Davis needs to absolutely step up big time if the Lakers want to actually move on. Not just him. Yeah. It's everybody. But he is the one person in particular that I am looking at in this series. As great of a player as I think Anthony Davis is, he is the one, to me at least, that really needs to step it up for the Lakers if they want to have a chance to win a championship and breeze past Portland.
Well, I think when I look at this series, first of all, I'm ecstatic because we get the matchups of LeBron versus Damian Lillard. We have CJ McCollum against, I guess you want to say, Dion Waiters or J.R. Smith, depending on how they want to go. Which I actually,
right.
I mean, considering both of them are very, very good shooters, that's still, it's still a big thing. And then you have Yusuf Nurkic that's going to have to go 1v1 against Anthony Davis. And by the way, I just wanted to send my condolences to Yusuf Nurkic because I found out during the play-in game between Portland and Memphis that earlier that day he had said on Instagram that his grandmother had passed. I believe it was his grandmother had passed due to COVID-19.
I did hear about that. My thoughts and prayers are with him and his family. Yeah, that really, really stings.
It's not an ideal time to have to deal with something like that when you're in a bubble, but hopefully he'll continue to play. If he has to leave for a certain amount of time, I think everybody will understand.
Oh yeah,
it's not an easy situation to be in without a doubt. But going back to that matchup, I think it's great. I think a lot of us wanted it as just basketball fans. I think we wanted it for the competitiveness, knowing that Damian Lillard has had 360-plus games just this season alone, which I think he's only the second player besides the great Will Chamberlain to do so, which is an incredible feat by Damian Lillard. And he definitely has proven that his shooting range has widened quite a bit over the last couple of years, especially the way he's been shooting the ball this year. But when I look at the Lakers, I don't panic because their seating, the number one spot in the West and, making the playoffs was pretty much secured before the restart happened. So for them, the 8 games didn't matter from the standpoint of trying to gain any ground or, prevent themselves from losing, their number one seed. I don't think it wouldn't have been a big deal even if they lost the number one seed because, again, knowing how LeBron, operates, LeBron obviously is getting closer to the end of his career. He's in his mid-30s, so there's no question about it, but he still plays at a very, very high level. And that shows you the amount of work ethic that he has and how gifted he still is. So you have to give him that. I think LeBron put himself on somewhat of a time limit. I don't think he cared necessarily that much when it came to just, going out there and winning those games. It mattered more to guys like J.R. Smith, Dion Waiters, Alex Caruso, maybe even Kyle Kuzma and JaVale McGee and those guys. It mattered more to them because they knew that they were going to be in specific roles and maybe they weren't going to get as much playing time once the playoffs started. So it was an opportunity for them to showcase what they can do. I think for a lot of players in the bubble, it was an opportunity to showcase what they can do for the future, whether it's for their own team that they're playing for at the moment or, in future endeavors, future situations, via free agency trade, whatever you want to call it, whatever you want to assume, I would guess. But, I'm not worried about the Lakers because, again, I think they'll be fine. I think that, talent-wise, they have a little bit more talent than the Blazers do. I think the Blazers' biggest thing that they lack is defense. I mean, you look at the situation against the Nets. They gave up almost 150 points and nearly lost, which would have knocked them out of the playoffs, and we wouldn't even be talking about Portland.
I was gonna say, that's true. I was also gonna bring up the bench for the Lakers seems a little bit more deep than Portland's bench.
Well, yeah, I mean it's a combination of guys that LeBron likes playing with, that he feels comfortable playing with. That's what you're going to get when you get LeBron in your team. What you're going to get is you're going to end up getting guys that maybe in your own power you might not go and get for different reasons, but you're going to get because he's buddies with LeBron. I mean, I've seen that before. Does LeBron make players around him better? To an extent, I would say yes. He has them play to a higher level. because he demands so much of his guys. And, you're going to get that in the post. You're going to get that. Do I think the Blazers have the ability to extend this series past 5 games? I do. That's why I
think so too.
And I said yesterday in my episode on Mofobo Network, I said that I had the Lakers winning that series in 6. I do think they're capable.
Oh, wow.
The Blazers are of winning a couple of games and making that a series. Because again, I don't really think that the Lakers are going to be 100% at the start of this. LeBron says he's going into playoff mode, which is, usually he's very, very focused, doesn't really do much of anything else, and just primarily focuses on going and winning a championship. You have very few distractions right now with regards to, being in the bubble. You have no fans. There's no home court advantage, and you're not going home to your family. You're going home to your teammates. You're going home, to your, hotel room and things like that. So for LeBron, he's going to have a lot more time to focus on, the games and things like that. And that could be, a positive and a negative, because obviously it's important to not be totally consumed by the work that you do, because it'll drive you nuts no matter what profession you may be in. But with LeBron and the Lakers, I don't see them, it didn't shock me that they weren't great during the 8 games, because for them it didn't matter that much. I think that Anthony Davis will be fine. Anthony Davis, I think, has a lot more to prove than LeBron, if you ask me, because Anthony Davis, I think this is only the 2nd or 3rd time in his career he is in the postseason.
Yes.
So, and he can't, and he wanted to leave. He wanted to be traded from New Orleans. He wanted to go to New York or LA. He ended up going to LA. And
I was gonna say, I think it's the 3rd time, because didn't he make the playoffs with New Orleans once?
He did. Yeah, I do recall. I think like 2015 he made the playoffs with them, but I don't remember if there was another year that they made it. I'd have to backtrack on that. But Anthony Davis hasn't had that many opportunities to play in the postseason. Also, we have to remember that even though it seems like a foregone conclusion that Anthony Davis is going to sign a max deal with the Lakers after the season, he will be a free agent. So if there is a possibility that he doesn't go back to the Lakers, this is an opportunity for him to showcase to other teams that, hey, I can be your main guy. And I know it's a little bit difficult because he's a power forward center, and usually you don't build your teams necessarily around that, especially nowadays, because everybody's expected to shoot, mid-range 3-point shooting and things like that. So, I mean, it's, but he has a lot to prove this year. And I think that he's capable of doing it, especially knowing that there aren't that many teams in the West that can, match up with him, height-wise. I think that he'll have an advantage in some regards. And because he can, step out and shoot the mid-range and shoot 3-pointers if need be, that gives him an advantage over some other players. I think that the Blazers are going to have to win these games. If they're going to win them, they're going to have to win them shooting threes and shooting long mid-range, because that's what they've been able to do with regards to, when they played the Nets, especially when they played the Memphis Grizzlies in the play-in game. They're going to have to do that. They're really going to, and Damian Lillard, CJ McCollum are going to have to be the catalyst. And Carmelo Anthony, I think, who has really revived his career in many ways.
Absolutely has.
Portland, I believe that he's going to have to step up. I think the biggest asset for him is that he is a tremendous rebounder. And I think that that's going to be important. I think the step back J, or the turnaround J, whichever one you want to call it, I think is his biggest offensive threat. I think that that's what he's capable of doing. But I think all those guys got to work together as a team. And again, Damian Lillard, you have to treat him a lot like Steph Curry and Klay Thompson, where you can't give him too much space. Even if you give him a little space, most likely Damian Lillard is going to pull up and make it. And it's not like it's going to hit off the backboard and go in. He's going to twitch it. Like, he's just going to hit nothing but net, because he's just perfected himself that much. This dude is an absolute animal. I mean, he is a unit without a doubt. And that's going to be something that I want to see the Lakers try to figure out. Are they going to put LeBron on Damian Lillard? Because, LeBron in many ways could be considered your best defender. That's no knock on Anthony Davis. It's just an all-around defender. LeBron probably is your best defender. Are you going to put him on Damian Lillard? I think that would make the most amount of sense, but who knows? It's going to be an interesting series. I think it's going to be competitive. I think it's going to be entertaining. But I think at the end of the day, the Lakers' talent is going to prevail. I think the depth of the bench is just a little bit better on the Lakers' side. And as a result, that's why I have the Lakers beating Blazers in 6.
Well, I have you one-upped on that one because if you didn't see on Twitter, I actually picked the Lakers in 7. This series, to me, has 7 games written all over. I think it is going to be that competitive of a series, and I cannot wait to actually sit down and watch basketball, a full game for probably the first time in my life. But I digress about that. But anyway, so Neil has Lakers in 6. I have Lakers in 7.
This is not a prediction day, ladies and gentlemen. We were just expressing our opinion on that series. I don't think we're going through all the series.
No. Well, we will briefly here because actually, let's talk about the ones that have a 1-0 series lead as of right now. So, Boston. I mean, I kind of expected Boston to. I kind of expected them to be not completely dominant, but good enough. But the Sixers really need to step it up. I mean, is Ben Simmons still hurt?
He's out for the year.
He's out for the year. Oh my God!
Basically, so the way it went is that it was originally something that could have kept him out for maybe a couple of weeks, and then if the Sixers made a long playoff run, he could come back. But once he had the surgery, or I think it was just before he had the surgery, it was pretty much determined because they said there was something misplaced in his knee. So that obviously is not a good thing you want to hear.
Oh my God.
It was determined that even if the Sixers were to go all the way to the NBA Finals, there's very little chance that Ben Simmons would be fully healthy and capable enough to play. It's kind of like the Kevin Durant situation, but not really. I don't think the Sixers would really force that because I think considering the team that they have, if they were to go to the NBA Finals, it would be kind of gravy, because not a lot of people would have expected them to get there, and for them to go through the Eastern Conference and get to the NBA Finals without someone like Ben Simmons would be a testament to the 76ers team. But look, I'm not surprised that the Celtics won. I do give the Sixers credit that they made that game competitive and that they.
I was going to say, especially Joel Embiid, the big night that he had. I mean, my goodness gracious.
26 points, 16 rebounds, and an assist. Yeah, I mean, it's safe to say that Joel Embiid stepped up. And I said that yesterday on my podcast. I said Joel Embiid is the guy that's going to have to step up because he has at times in the postseason not been there. He's just kind of checked out in a way, and he just hasn't been the factor that he can be. He can be a dominant, unstoppable player, considering also that other than maybe if you want to say Enes Kanter, the Celtics don't really have anybody to match up with him, with Joel Embiid. So this should be a time in Joel Embiid's career where he really needs to start dominating because we're hearing questions about who do the Sixers stick with long term? Do they stick with Ben Simmons? Do they stick with Joel Embiid? I think that you should try to stick with both of them because they do very well together. But if you are, thinking about moving one of them, this is an opportunity for Joel Embiid to showcase himself and to prove to the Sixers and maybe also to prove to other teams that he can be a dominant force in the postseason because that's where you really, really gain your respect and your recognition. Is that it's not about always what you do in the regular season. It's about what you do when the stakes are really high and you're in the postseason. I also wanted to say that I thought Jason Richardson had a really good game. He had 18.6 rebounds, 2 assists.
He did.
I thought he played really well. Tobias Harris really, really needs to work on his mid-range game. He really does. If he can get his mid-range game down, he becomes that much better of a player. And Al Horford, I think the Sixers have really regretted ever bringing him in. And I'm sure the Celtics are very happy that they let him go because Al Horford is not doing what he was brought in to do. He's just not the same player. His age is certainly getting with him, and it's showing. Alec Burks was kind of a surprise. He dropped 18 off the bench.
Yeah.
I'll be honest with you. If one of your highest scorers is a guy coming off the bench, then maybe he shouldn't be on the bench.
No. He should be in the starting 5.
Timothy Luwawu-Cabarrot had almost 30 points yesterday for the Nets, and he came off the bench.
Yep.
I think it would be safe to say that Cabarrot should not be on the bench to start the game. Now, does it hurt? Does it hurt to have a guy or two on your bench that can come in and give you 15, 20? Absolutely. That just makes you that much deeper of a team. But I think at this point, you got to give guys the opportunity to showcase themselves as a starter. So maybe Alec Burks, maybe you give him the opportunity. I don't really, I don't really know. Milton was okay. He had 13 points, but other than that, he really didn't do anything.
There's no question that the two biggest stars for Boston in Game 1 were Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. I mean, those are probably your two biggest players right now.
You're talking about a duo that could be one of the more up-and-coming duos in the NBA. You could see that they've now really developed into NBA, a tremendous NBA talent. And you can thank the Brooklyn Nets for both of those guys. But anyway, look, you had Jaylen Brown, who had 29, 6, and 4. And then you had Jason Tatum, who had 32, 13, and 1. They practically carried the Celtics to that game.
Yep.
Kemba Walker, I thought, played really well, too. I think he has really enjoyed coming to Boston. I'm really happy that he's on and I know this is going to be disrespectful, but I'm glad that he's on a competitive team. I'm glad he's on a team that can
You're not wrong.
make noise. I think Brad Stevens, who just got a contract extension with the Celtics, really understands the team that he has around him and has built a formula for success. The one guy that, again, unfortunately, I feel bad for is Gordon Hayward, who left the game in a boot. And that pretty much tells me that the Celtics made a mistake bringing him in a couple of years ago. I understood it because, again, at the time that he was signed, he was one of the more up-and-coming, young small forwards in the game, and he had done really well.
Yeah, but ever since that terrible injury, he hasn't been the same player.
No, he's been consistently injured, and it's a guy that, might be more of a journeyman for the rest of his career, primarily because he just can't stay healthy and they don't know. He could be like it's almost like he's I guess you want to say, I'm trying to find like a good player to compare him to, but I can't really off the top of my head. But he would just be one of those journeymen that if he stayed healthy, that's great. I mean, I would like him to have a storyline kind of like what Derrick Rose has had, where he had that, he just never was the elite player that he could be once he got hurt. But now that he's been playing a lot more, he's been, tremendous. And I would like to see Gordon Hayward do that. It's unfortunate that he just hasn't been able to stay healthy, and that's a big thing. But nonetheless, I mean, Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown were absolutely tremendous. And if they let up even a little bit in Game 1, they might have lost, which I think would have been a huge momentum thing for the Sixers more than it would have been for the Celtics, because the Sixers would have said, well, we're clearly the underdogs in this series. We don't have Ben Simmons. We're not playing the greatest basketball that we need to be playing, but we still got the job done. But the Celtics were able to win that game, and that was important. If the Sixers don't win Game 2, I would be very hard-pressed to say that they probably are not going to last very long in this series.
I agree.
I had the Celtics winning that series in 5 because, again, Ben Simmons is such a difference maker. And if the Sixers are fully healthy and have everything clicking, they're a very, very hard team to beat, especially on the fast break. Not having Ben Simmons out there, there's a big hole to fill. And, whether it's Milton, whether it's Burks, I don't know, combination of both. Brett Brown's got to do something because I think his job is quite frankly on the line. It's
well,
like how much
I'll tell you what he can't. I'll tell you what he can do. Stop trying to be Greg Popovich and develop your own system. Bingo. End of story.
Well, the NBA is a copycat league, and sometimes it works out. So we'll see.
Oh my
we shall
God.
see. But he's no Mike D'Antonio, that's for sure. He's
Oh
not
my
trying to make his own. He's not trying to revolutionize the game.
Yeah,
but, again,
that's true.
The mark of a good coach is to define a system that is based around the guys that you have. And, just getting Joel Embiid the ball every single time is not going to fully work once you get into postseason. It might win you some games in the regular season, no doubt. But postseason, it's a lot more about the team than it really is about one specific player trying to carry you.
Thank you. That has always been my argument. I'm glad you agree with me. So But yeah, we'll see if the Sixers can rebound here. And by the way, in case you didn't see on Twitter, let me go quickly here through my predictions here for the NBA playoffs in the first round here. So Nets and Raptors, I had the Nets in 6 games. Celtics and 76ers, I have the Celtics in 6. Pacers versus the Heat, I actually have the Miami Heat winning in 7. 7 games. That's another series to me. That's a very underrated series, in my opinion, because Jimmy Butler, what he's doing for the Heat is absolutely unbelievable. And you look at the Pacers, their bench is a very underrated part of the game, as well as the defense. And I think, what's that?
TJ Warren is the difference maker for that.
Oh my God, absolutely.
Except when they play the Heat and Jimmy Butler, because I think
for some reason, I don't know.
I think TJ Warren is psyched out when he plays Jimmy Butler. I don't know why. I don't know what it is, but now TJ Warren has that opportunity against Miami to really, prove the doubters wrong, prove people like myself who are wondering, why can't he beat, Jimmy Butler? But TJ Warren can't do it himself, obviously. You still have Victor Oladipo who, is he 100% right now? No, but, he's still very good. You have Sabonis, who I think is arguably one of the more athletic big men in the NBA right now, and he's really good down low. You have Brogdon, who was a former Rookie of the Year, who has found a second career since he went to Indiana. So I mean, Indiana's going to be more of a physical team, and I think the Heat know that, and I think the Heat are also going to be very physical. So I think that's going to be one of the more physical series you're going to see.
Yeah,
maybe not a lot of high-scoring games because both teams play pretty solid defense. But I think you're going to get a competitive series. I have the Heat winning in, I think I said 6.
You have Heat in 6, okay.
Heat in 6. Because, again, I think in the NBA, unlike other sports, talent prevails a lot more. It's like if you have more talent, more likely you're going to win because it's not as unpredictable as other sports. You can control a lot of what's going on. And if you're just a more dominant player, 9 times out of 10, you're going to prevail over, another, a guy that's inferior to you. So I think in this standpoint that I think the Pacers are going to make it a series, just like I said with the Blazers. But I think at the end, Jimmy Butler and that Heat team is just a little bit more talented. You also have to wonder, how are the Pacers going to slow down Bam Adebayo? I don't know. I really don't know. Nobody seems to have figured it out yet. So,
well, if any team can try and figure it out, it might be them.
And if Jimmy Butler is on his game, which I know he will be, that's going to be a double-edged problem for the Pacers. But we'll see. But it's going to be an interesting series, no doubt.
Yep, absolutely. So Heat in 7 for me, Heat in 6 for you. Bucks, Magic. I mean, I don't really expect too much in this series. I expect the Bucks to absolutely wipe the floor with Orlando. I don't think Orlando's that good. I mean, they're decent, but I don't think they're good enough to face that Bucks squad with Giannis and the crew. I have the Bucks in 5, and that one I expect that to be a short-lived series. Clippers and Mavericks. I have the Clippers in 6 games. I mean, I don't really need to say too much about the Clippers. I mean, Kawhi Leonard's unstoppable. Paul George is pretty much Kawhi Leonard's wingman, who has been tremendous. Nuggets, Jazz. I have the Nuggets in 6. And by the way, we're going to get into a little bit more about that Clippers-Mavericks game in just a little bit because I had a bit of a problem with one of the things that happened there, but we'll get into that in a little bit.
You and everyone else on social media.
Nuggets and Jazz. I mean, again, Neil, what have I said about the Denver Nuggets? Unless you live in Denver, Colorado, who is talking about the Denver Nuggets and how good they have been?
Me.
Nobody. Nobody's talking about how good Nikola Jokic has been. Nobody.
Hold on.
Besides you and me.
I want my recognition for the fact that I've been talking about Denver for a very long time.
But besides you and me is what I meant to say. So I apologize. But nobody else, at least in the tri-state area, again, unless you live in Denver, who is talking about the Denver Nuggets?
Yeah.
Nobody. Nobody's talking about the fact how good Nikola Jokic is or how their bench is or how underrated the defense is. Nobody's talking about it. Nobody. The Nuggets are a severely severely underrated team in my opinion.
Well,
I have them beating the Jazz in 6 games.
I wouldn't say that the Nuggets aren't talked about enough. I think that a lot of the NBA recognizes the fact that the Nuggets have built their team to be a very good playoff team. I mean, the majority of their team is drafted and developed, which is great.
Right.
I really appreciate teams that can draft and develop guys and make them into a championship team. That's why you had to give the Golden State Warriors credit where credit is due, because when they were winning championships, other than when Kevin Durant was there, the majority of their main guys were drafted and developed with the team. So they went through the draft for the most part. They only had one guy that came via free agency. The Nuggets really haven't had anybody that came via free agency. I mean, yeah, you have small role players like Plumlee that came via free agency, but like Michael Porter Jr., who, by the way, if people forgot, a couple of years ago, he was projected to be the number 1 overall pick, above Trae Young, above Luka Doncic.
But everybody kept passing on him because he was hurt.
Well, that's the thing. He got hurt very early in his freshman year at Mizzou, and everybody was wondering what exactly, how bad was his injury and what could he do? And I remember when the Knicks, because I was at the NBA draft that year, I was there at the draft, and I remember sitting there with my friends, and I said, the Knicks, if Michael Porter Jr. is there at the Knicks pick, the Knicks need to take him, because you don't have to have this guy start right away. You can just let him slowly build himself, because this dude is a star. This dude has the ability to be very, very good. And of course, the Knicks ended up taking Kenny Knox, which is not a bad move by any means, but I think considering how well Michael Porter Jr. has developed, they might want to have a second try at that. But when Denver took him, I was a little surprised, but he has flourished under Mike Malone's system. But you have Michael Porter Jr., you have Nikola Jokic, Jamal Murray, you have several other guys that. And the one guy that I think people are not talking about enough that I think has flourished since he came to Denver.
Absolutely.
Marion Grant is Grant, without a doubt. I forgot that he gained, I feel like he gained like 8 inches since he got to Denver. Like, I don't know if it's the high altitude that just happens to work with your bones, but he looks taller to me than what I remember, but he has done very, very well, especially coming off the bench, just being your 6th man. I'm very, very impressed. And Nikola Jokic yesterday, 29 points, 10 rebounds. Not a surprise. But what is a surprise is considering that he came to camp, I think, 25 pounds lighter than he was when the season was going on. I think Jokic recognized the fact that he needed to get in better shape because he knew that the Nuggets had a legitimate shot to compete for a spot to go to the NBA Finals, and that's what he was doing. Jamal Murray yesterday was a force. He was a force from the start to the finish, and he knew he had to go one-on-one against, and his name escapes me for some stupid reason. I don't understand. Donovan Mitchell, right? I was thinking someone else. But
by the way, had probably one of the games of his life, 57-9 in a losing effort. I mean, that just goes to show you, one player can instantly turn a franchise around sometimes, and Donovan Mitchell, he seems to be one of those examples.
Yeah, there were a lot of people that passed up on Donovan Mitchell. I mean, and that happens in the draft every now and then.
One of them.
The Knicks, yeah, I know. I know our friend Steve is
sorry, Knicks fans.
Screaming, but it's fine. It's fine. And, as a Nets fan, they didn't even have a pick that year, so they couldn't even draft him.
Right, yeah.
Anyway, look, Denver is a well-balanced team. They could push the floor. They could push the tempo. If Jokic gets on the fast break, he's very tough to stop. And even though he didn't play, I don't think he played very much. I don't think he played at all, now that I think about it. But I think the Nuggets should really consider giving a couple minutes to Bol Bol. I know that sounds ridiculous because Bol Bol, Bol Bol for many people is just a meme in many regards, but he really showcased himself a lot during the 8 games, of the regular season. And I really do think they should I'm not saying you got to give him 15, 20 minutes a night. I'm saying you got to give him 5, 10 minutes or so.
Right.
Because he can definitely pass the ball. He has tremendous eyesight. He knows exactly where to put the ball for other guys, and he sets them up very well. And he's another big guy. If you have him next to Nikola Jokic down low, you have a good, twin towers like formation down low, which is really, really good. So, but I think bottom line, what you saw in that Denver-Utah game yesterday was that the Nuggets were a little bit more conditioned and a little bit deeper on their bench than Utah is. Now, Utah also doesn't have Mike Conley because Mike Conley left the bubble to go take care of his newborn, so he just became a father. I did hear that he'll be
congratulations.
Back. Yeah, absolutely. I heard he'll be back, so I'm sure the Jazz would like to have him and have their
yes.
team ready to go. But
that's definitely going to be a big piece for them when he comes back.
I think it would have been huge for the Jazz if they had found a way to win that game in overtime. But the Nuggets did prevail.
Yeah,
I did think that the Nuggets were going to. I do have the Nuggets winning in 5, and that's not because I don't think the Jazz are that good. I just think that the Nuggets are just better. I think all around, height, talent-wise, I just think they're better. I do think Donovan Mitchell can win them the game. I mean, he nearly did. He dropped 57 and they lost. It's like Jonas Korpisalo, the goalie for the Columbus Blue Jackets, making 85 saves and losing.
And they still lost.
Right. It's like having a great individual performance, but from the team base, you still lost by double digits. And that's difficult. That's difficult to deal with. But, hey, look, my pick in the West is still, it's still very, very possible. And they kind of proved to the NBA world yesterday. The Nuggets are a force to be reckoned with, and you don't want to give them an opportunity because Mike Malone will have this team prepared for every type of situation. And I think that's why he's one of the most underrated head coaches in the NBA, and I think he should be given a lot more credit for how he has developed the talent. And I'm telling you right now, if Michael Porter Jr. continues to develop that the way he's been developing, especially from the outside, he is going to be a massive, massive weapon.
I agree.
The Nuggets can use on a game-to-game basis. That's going to be tough to stop.
I absolutely agree. So, Lakers, Trailblazers, we already gave our predictions there. I have the Lakers in 7. Rockets, Thunder. We'll just go over this real quick, and then we'll get into the Stanley Cup playoffs. Rockets, Thunder is going to be very, very interesting because we all know what happens with the Rockets in the playoffs. They just can't seem to get over the hump. And the one player that everyone wants to go after is James Harden. He just can't seem to do it. I mean, don't forget, James Harden is still probably one of the best scorers we've ever seen in the modern day NBA. So don't discredit that. And obviously they have Russell Westbrook on the team now, so that obviously adds a little bit more pressure, not only to him, but the team. Because Russell Westbrook is basically the wingman to James Harden. And, the Thunder, I don't know. I forgot half the roster in Oklahoma City. That's how much I haven't been paying attention to them recently. But from what I do know is that, they're a decent team. They're decent, but at the end of the day, I actually think this is going to be a pretty competitive series between the two teams. And I actually have the Rockets in 7. I actually have the Houston Rockets finally getting over the hump and actually advancing in the playoffs. I have them beating the Thunder in 7.
So the first thing I'll say is that the Rockets are going to be without Russell Westbrook to start because he did get hurt towards the end of the 8 games. So that's obviously going to be a difficult loss. But again, that pretty much guarantees that James Harden is going to have to carry the majority of the offense. I mean, PJ Tucker can give you 15. I think Eric Gordon is, he's okay. But, he's mainly a three-point shooter. Again, the Rockets are going to have to win that game shooting from the perimeter. They're going to have to. They're going to have to shoot, deep mid-range, three-point shots. Like, they can't compete down low. They don't have anybody that can compete down low with a guy like Steven Adams. Because Mike D'Antoni has created a new offense where it's just basically all wings, and you just shoot from the outside, which is pretty much what the NBA game is now. But this is a little bit different because now teams that are facing the Rockets know that they just have to try to get the ball down low as much as possible because really they don't have anybody to guard the big man that they might have. So that's going to be something. Also, let's remember, Chris Paul was traded from the Rockets to the Thunder for Russell Westbrook. Now, obviously, the Thunder got a boatload of first-round picks, which I think now Sam Presti, over 2 major trades this past offseason, was able to get something like 11, 12, 13 first-round picks over the next 4 or 5 years. So Sam Presti and the Thunder are going to be set for the future. So, it's going to be good for the Thunder over the next couple of years. But when Chris Paul got traded to the Thunder statistically had a 0.2% chance of making the playoffs. They finished as the 5th seed in the Western Conference. That is tremendous. Danilo Gallinari came in and was great. Steven Adams was just Steven Adams. He knew what he had to do. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is a star waiting to happen, ladies and gentlemen. This kid is phenomenal. This kid is very, very difficult to slow down. And they are on point, okay? So I look at this series and I say the biggest difference is simply that the Thunder are a better team defensively. They are a better team defensively. They are going to be more physical than the Rockets will be. And I think the Rockets are not going to be prepared for that. And that's why I have the Thunder winning that series in 6. I think the Thunder are going to prove that the system that D'Antonio is trying to implement is just not going to work, at least not for right now. I also think D'Antonio is on the last licks of his time in Houston. We're hearing left and right that most likely if he doesn't go at least to the Western Conference Finals or even at least the NBA Finals, that he'll probably be removed as head coach. Which will make him a hot commodity in the offseason for a lot of teams. So and I think that's why you're not seeing a lot of teams making choices with regards to new head coaches. We know that Alvin Gentry was just fired from New Orleans, so it'll be interesting to see where they go with that. The Nets haven't made a decision yet as to what they want to do after the season with their head coach. I have an opinion on that. I think it's Jacques Vaughn, but that's me. But anyway, the Thunder, dude, they got nothing to lose. They really don't. They weren't expected to make the playoffs. They weren't expected to be that good. They're very good. They have 13 first-round picks over the next 5 years. Sam Presti continues to be one of the most impressive GMs in the NBA. He had 3 generational talents in Russell Westbrook, James Harden, and Kevin Durant. And all 3 of them leave in one way or another. And now he has a lot of draft capital. Like, he may not use all of it. He may trade it to get a big-name player to come to Oklahoma City. And, I'm happy for Chris Paul other than the fact that he likes to snitch on every single player in the league. I'm impressed with how he has rebounded from his difficult time in Houston to really doing well in Oklahoma City. And I think they have a legitimate shot of pulling off an upset. And that's why I like Oklahoma City in 6.
Very, very interesting. I like it. We'll definitely see. But by the way, I totally forgot to mention the fact that we should probably discuss the Nets a little bit because listen.
And you also wanted to talk about what happened between.
Yes, I did.
I was going to say, let's do that first.
But listen, in case for some reason you missed it, so.
I missed it.
Kristaps Porzingis.
I actually missed it. I didn't actually see it. I was watching the Stanley Cup playoffs. I saw on my phone.
Apparently in the first half, Kristaps Porzingis got a technical against Paul George, I believe. But that's not my concern. The second half comes, and then after the whistle blows on a play. Marcus Morris, who we all know is a bit of an agitator, just a little bit.
Yo, you said agitator. I thought you were going to say something else. Not like you were about to say something else. I was about to be like, okay.
Probably not a word for this podcast, but I digress. But yeah, Marcus Morris is a bit of an agitator. He gets into the face of Luka Doncic, and Porzingis, steps in, defends his teammate.
Markieff is a little bit more of an agitator than Marcus Morris.
Well,
that's new.
I guess you can make that argument, yes, but Porzingis steps in and defends his teammates, pushing and shoving involved. Refs get together. They decide to call another technical on KP and throw him out of the game. I didn't know that defending your teammate warranted getting you thrown out of the game. That made no sense to me whatsoever. I mean, I don't know what they said. Yeah. I can't get into the minds of athletes, so I don't know exactly what happened or what was said. But to me, I didn't know that defending a teammate warranted getting you thrown out of the game. It makes no sense to me whatsoever. I'm sorry.
Well, I mean, look, it started, the whole thing started with, obviously, Marcus Morris, maybe a little bit extra shove there on Luka Doncic, and Luka took exception to that. And I got to give Kristaps credit because he's like, hey, man, this is our star. You can't just, push him around like that. And remember, I think this is the first time Luka Doncic is in the postseason. So, again, he's learning, he's learning. And by the way, before I get into the rest of this, Luka Doncic, 42 points in his debut, which is the most points by a player in NBA history in their debut. So good job by him. But he did say that he felt that he personally had a terrible performance because he did also have 11 turnovers. So that was definitely something. But again, 42 points, 7 rebounds, 9 assists. This is pretty damn good. But again, kind of like Donovan,
also, Porzingis is absolutely kicking Mofobo with the Dallas Mavericks right now.
Did you really just steal my?
Yes, I did.
Okay, so you owe me $20 for that. I trademarked it, and you owe me money now. So
copyright Neil Villapiano 2020. But anyway,
I actually copyrighted it, so you owe me money.
Go ahead.
But anyway, no, I mean, I give Kristaps Porzingis credit because he's stepping up for his teammate. He's like, hey, you're not just gonna push him around. And I think Marcus Morris got upset because he felt like it wasn't that big of a deal. And Luka Doncic didn't react. Like, he didn't throw the ball at Marcus Morris or get in his face about it. Maybe it's fair to say that Porzingis took a little bit more of an exception than everyone else. But I think the worst that you should have done if you're the refs is give both Morris and Porzingis a technical on that. So a double tech. I think that would have been the worst that I've been. But to get thrown out over a little shove kind of shows you how much the NBA has changed since the 90s when you could just shove someone and it would be nothing. I think everybody's a little bit more sensitive to these certain things nowadays. So, it is what it is. And I did see, guys like LeBron and even Patrick Mahomes were tweeting how much of a bogus, decision that was.
It was.
Porzingis obviously was more surprised than anything else that he got ejected for that. And it did hurt, obviously, the Mavericks because he wasn't able to help them try to, make a comeback and win that game. Paul George got the game-winning shot. Man was lethal when you needed him to. I thought it was great that Luka caught it was Porzingis that caught Kawhi Leonard slipping, which I thought was funny because, you don't see Kawhi Leonard get, crossed up that much. You don't see him get, falling on the floor. So it's something that got people's attention. It was like a, oh, my goodness type thing. But at the end of the day, the Clippers just proved that they were the better team, and they could last a lot longer than the Mavericks did. The Mavericks are learning how to win, okay? They have 2 players that they're building their team around. And so they're still learning. But you got to give Luka a lot of credit, man. He went out there and was fearless, didn't worry about it being his first playoff game. He went out and in many ways stole the show. But if he cut down to half of the turnovers that he made yesterday, I think the Mavericks might have won that game. Because turnovers and free throw shooting to me are 2 of the biggest things in the NBA, 2 of the biggest things in basketball, most important things. If you give up fewer turnovers than the other team, it's not going to happen all the time, but I think a good amount of the time you're going to probably end up winning the game a lot more. And if you're making your free throws like the Raptors were, I think they went something like 25 of 26 from the free throw line yesterday, you're going to win those games. Because free throw shooting and things like that are the difference makers in games that end, and you don't lose by double digits. You might say, if we had made those 5 other free throws, maybe we would have won the game. And that's what I would be thinking if I was a head coach. I wouldn't be worried about, if we got this call, if we got that call. I'd be like, when we got to the free throw line, we got to make our free throws. That's what you got to do. But at the end of the day, it's just it was a good game, back and forth game. For a while there, it looked like either team could win, but the Clippers and particularly Paul George just took the game into their hands and put it away. So, I have the Clippers winning in 5. So, and it's no disrespect. It's one of those situations where the Mavericks are still learning how to win. They're still learning how to be a competitive playoff team. The Clippers are a championship team. They're not going to allow a team like Dallas to really, screw them up, at least in the first round. I think the Clippers will make this not an easy series because I think it'll be 5 games that'll be relatively close.
Right.
But again, I like my chances with the Clippers in 5. But Luka Doncic cut down on the turnovers, man. Might be a whole different ballgame.
Yep, turnover is definitely going to be a huge factor in this series. And again, as far as the Nets, I mean, I'm not really hitting the panic button on Brooklyn just yet. I mean, it was only
everyone
one
else
game.
is apparently. Which is stupid.
All right, well, if you're a Nets fan out there, calm down, Neil. I know you obviously are, so you know better than me.
The funny thing is that everybody who's not a Nets fan is panicking. Nets fans are not panicking.
I don't get it. Yes, look.
I'll explain.
Hold on. Listen. Did they look bad in game 1? Yes, I'm not denying that. But it's only one game. Right. There's still plenty of time. Now, if they were down 2-0 right now, let's say they started early and they were down 2-0, okay, maybe there was a cause for a little bit of panic. But one game? Can we calm down, please? Let's see what happens in game 2. And if they still look the same, then we can panic a little bit. That's all I'm saying.
I don't think there's a cause for panic at all in this series because I'll tell you this right now. Did anybody think the Nets were going to make the playoffs in the round?
No.
In the return of play? No. And not only did they make the playoffs, they ended up as the 7th seed.
Yep.
They didn't leak by, Washington, which, to be fair, the Nets really would have had to go like almost 0-8 just to get knocked out. I mean, They only had to win 2 or 3 games to get in. The Wizards had very little shot anyway. Okay, it was more for me about were they gonna have to play the Bucks in round 1 or the Raptors. The Nets matchup wise, it favored them a little bit more with the Raptors, primarily because they don't have a dominant they don't have a dominant big man. I mean, Marc Gasol and Pascal Siakam and Serge Ibaka are certainly very good players, and they showcased themselves yesterday. This was a couple takeaways from the first game. First of all, as a fan, I was obviously energized, very excited. I felt pretty confident that the Nets could really, compete. The reality was simply that the Nets got off to a piss-poor start shooting the ball. They missed a lot of shots. They weren't scoring the way that they were capable of scoring. And the Nets usually, the way that they try to start games is that if they can get their shooting on point from the get-go, it's going to be a tough game for the other team. It's going to be a back and forth. If they struggle early on, it's very difficult for them to rebound. And you have to give credit to the Nets because they were down by as much as 33 points against Toronto and cut it to 8 by the end of the third quarter. So there was some talking about the Nets could legitimately, make this a very, very tough game one. But in the end, again, the Nets started to shoot poorly and shoot way too many threes. They're not that much of a three-point shooting team. Yes, they have Karis LeVert. Yes, they have Joe Harris. Okay? Tyler Johnson can also shoot from downtown.
Do they still have Jared Allen?
They do have Jared. Yeah, but Jared Allen doesn't shoot threes. Jared Allen is a bona fide big man who, by the way, absolutely murdered Serge Ibaka down low when he dunked over him. Okay?
I saw
it wasn't that big of a deal to most.
That was absolutely brutal.
But Serge Ibaka, who is considered to be one of the best blocking big men in the NBA, got absolutely destroyed on that one particular play by Jared Allen, who is just not afraid to dunk in your face. He's just not afraid. And in many ways, it's like, it's a grown man's jam. And honestly, he reminds me a little bit of like Kareem because he's just that very, skinny, athletic big man that can really dominate down low. If Jared Allen just plays more aggressive down low, he's very tough to stop no matter who's guarding him. But look, the Nets, they just got off to a bad start and they couldn't really recover. I give them a lot of credit that they came out in the second half in that third quarter and they just decided to start making their shots, playing good basketball, playing the way they're capable of playing. If they played all 4 quarters the way they played the third quarter, that game's a lot closer. That game is a lot closer. Maybe the Raptors still win, but it was a lot closer. Also, I will say this. There were several times where the Raptors just threw up a shot and it went in. There was a lot of luck going for the Raptors' way. And also, Kyle Lowry, who's been in the league about 13, 14 years, has perfected the flopping. This man literally believes that every time he gets touched, there's a foul. And it was pretty obvious because if you look at the stats, the Nets only shot about 12 or 13 free throws. The Raptors nearly shot 30. You don't think it was obvious that the calls were, for the most part, going one way?
It looked pretty obvious to me.
Also, the amount of offensive fouls on both teams in that game was stupid. I had never seen so many offensive fouls called in one game. So I thought the refereeing was a little bit crappy, but it wasn't the difference maker in the game. The difference maker was the Nets just got off to a bad start. So am I panicking? No. Because again, I said this before and I'll say it again. Anything the Nets do positively is gravy because they're not expected to do anything.
There you go.
If they get swept, who cares? Who cares? Also, the Raptors are playing with a chip on their shoulder because everybody thought they were going to suck because Kawhi Leonard wasn't coming back.
And look how good they're doing.
The same team without Kawhi Leonard, and they are proving to be a very, very good team. A team that can very well compete for an NBA title again. And if they keep playing this way, they're going to be very tough to stop. But at the end of the day, if the Nets get off to a better start and start making their shots more consistently, they're going to have a lot more success. Then they're going to make this more and more competitive. So I still have the Raptors winning, and I still have them winning in 7 because I really think this is a series that's going to go back and forth. This is not going to be something that the Nets are just not going to be a pushover for the Raptors. The Raptors know that too because they understand that this team believes in each other and they get it. Now, is Jamal Crawford going to play at all? I don't even know at this point. And it's disappointing because he came in and was playing really well in the couple minutes that he came into. But I know that Jacques Vaughn wanted to shorten his bench, but I think you've got to go back to the way you were doing it before because you were winning that way. You had only, John Musa and Lance Thomas were the only ones that really didn't do anything. Justin Anderson and Martin and Dante Hall, not really. Chris Chiozza should have gotten a lot more minutes, and I think that that's going to change. But Timothy Luwawu-Cabarrot, who has flourished since he got to the Nets, had 26 off the bench. 26 off he didn't even start the game.
Yep.
I think that the Nets should replace Garrett Temple with Timothy Luwawu-Cabarrot and go from there. Because he clearly is a better consistent shooter than Garrett Temple is. So that's just me. If it goes down 2-0, it is what it is. I just want to see the Nets be competitive. I'm not sitting here panicking or worrying about it. I'm just more like, can the Nets be competitive? And they were competitive for a while in that third quarter. But again, once you started seeing a lot of the calls going against the Nets and things like that, and then they started shooting poorly again in the fourth, you knew it was, they ended up losing by 24, which is difficult. But, I think the Nets will bounce back. I have more confidence than most because I am a fan. And when you're a fan, you watch the team closer than, a lot of other people would. And I think this team is capable of bouncing back. I think Jacques Vaughn will have them ready to bounce back, and they'll go from there.
Yep, absolutely. That's why I have the Nets in 6 because I definitely think that they can compete with this Raptors team despite the fact that they look really good without Kawhi Leonard. But I think the Nets are a very underrated
Kawhi
team.
Leonard? Wait, when did Kawhi Leonard go on the Nets? That's new.
Oh my God. You get my point. You get my point.
No, I actually don't. You mean Kyrie Irving?
Yeah, Kyrie Irving.
I mean, look, obviously if they had Kyrie and KD fully healthy.
Right, yes.
Would they have a better shot? Yeah, absolutely. Again, all the players on the Nets are proving to KD, Kyrie, Sean Marks, the GM of the Nets, the whole Nets organization, why they should be on this team. I think Tyler Johnson has proven that he should be on this team after this year. He has been phenomenal. And finally, the Nets got him because Nets were trying to get him 3 years ago and they couldn't get him. Finally, they were able to actually get him, and I really enjoy watching him play. I think Chris Chiozza, cheese slice, I think he should definitely be on this team. Luwawu-Cabarrot, yes. LeVert is your third star. You do not need to go out and get a third star.
Right.
Karis LeVert is your third star. And I think people are starting to realize that. Garrett Temple, no. I don't want him on this team anymore. Jared Allen, yes. Kurucs,
God.
Joe Harris, give Joe Harris the money. This man is one of the best
God.
three-point shooters in the game. He finished the last 2 years with a higher three-point percentage than Steph Curry. Okay? Steph Curry. And I know Steph Curry was hurt most of this year, but still. Okay? And he finished the year before higher than Steph Curry, and Steph Curry played all season long. Okay? So I was saying this. You take the team that the Nets have now, for the most part, in the bubble. You add on the players that opted out, maybe not Wilson Chandler, but everyone else, DeAndre Jordan, Torian Prince, Spencer Dinwiddie. Then you also add KD and Kyrie. You have a pretty deep team that can play well together, that understands how to win. Oh, and also you make Jacques Vaughn the head coach full time, because I think Jacques Vaughn has proven himself to be a very good head coach. And I hope the Nets give him a chance. But again, Kyrie and KD do have the last say. Obviously there were reports that they're trying to go after Greg Popovich. That's just not going to happen. I think Jacques Vaughn has proven himself to be the right man for this job. But again, it's not up to him. It's up to KD and Kyrie. So we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. What I meant to say was that I think the Nets can still be competitive with the Raptors, who don't have Kawhi Leonard. That's what I meant to say.
That's what you meant.
That was my bad. I apologize.
Right.
But that's our whole take on these NBA playoffs. Let us know what you think at Bottomline WMCX on Twitter.
What are we, an hour into this?
What's that?
What are we, an hour into this already?
Yes. But if you have any thoughts on the NBA playoffs, let us know on Twitter.
Do live streams with this so that people can
let us know on Twitter at Bottomline WMCX, at the MVP Show, and on Instagram at Bottomline WMCX, hashtag Bottomline. So real quick to wrap things up here. And by the way, our friends in First to 11 actually have a bit of a surprise. They're releasing 2 covers this week. Ooh. And they actually just posted it on Instagram as we speak right now at the time of this recording. Nice. Little extra surprise from our good friends there from First to 11. By the way, make sure you go support them. We would really appreciate it if you did. I'll leave a link to their channel in the description below so you can subscribe to them and also to their social media platforms as well. So real quick, to wrap things up here, let's go real quickly into the Stanley Cup playoffs, because we had a lot of action taking place here. First of all, at the time of this recording, again, August 18th, 2020, you currently have the Philadelphia Flyers having a 2-1 series lead over the Montreal Canadiens. You have the Islanders, who have a 3-0 series lead over the Washington Capitals. I mean, talk about dominant. Islanders have been dominant right from the get-go. I don't think there's anybody that's going to be stopping them anytime soon. You have Boston having a 3-1 series lead over the Hurricanes. And Boston did not look like the same team going into the playoffs. All right? And they were down 2-0 in the –
Let's talk about Game 4.
Wait, hold on. We will in a little bit, I promise. But you have – oh, and by the way, you have Tampa, who looks like the team they were supposed to last year have a 3-1 series lead over the Columbus Blue Jackets. So unless Columbus can pull a miracle out of their you-know-whats and come back, Tampa's going to take this series. So I give Tampa a ton of credit here.
I wonder what would be worse, getting swept last year by Columbus or blowing a 3-1 lead to Columbus.
Oh, my God.
Honestly, I think probably this year would be worse, because it would be like you had them by the throat and you didn't. I mean, it's just –
you couldn't finish the job.
I think what you're seeing is and this is the case for a lot of the teams that are down in their series. The play-in teams, the teams that had to play the qualifier, they're tired. They had to go through a 4 or 5 game series before this. The team that, the top 4 seeds, they played round robin, which they weren't 100% like into it, because it did, what was at stake? Just getting a higher seed doesn't matter.
Right.
Seeding to me is bogus in the NHL playoff, in the Stanley Cup playoffs. It's bogus to me. It doesn't matter.
No, you're right.
I've seen a number 8 seed team go all the way and win the Stanley Cup. So I mean, what are we talking about here? So, you're seeing teams getting tired. And that's, I think, what you're seeing. I think Tampa is a little bit fresher. I think that Game 1 going to 5 overtimes and winning was the biggest difference maker, because even though Columbus did win game number 2 and tie the series up, the Lightning have been the better team the last 2 games.
Yep.
And it showcased they're deeper than the Blue Jackets. And I think the Lightning are more prepared for the Blue Jackets this time around. I think they're more resilient. I think they're a little bit bigger body because they got guys like Zach Bogosian and Patrick Maroon. And Alex Killorn, I think, has become a little bit more of a physical player, which I think you need. And also, can we just talk about the third line of Tampa, which is with Blake Coleman, Yanni Gord, and Barclay Goodrow. That line is phenomenal. And again, I will mention that when you are a Stanley Cup competitive team, you need to have one dominant line. You need to have 4 really good lines, but you need to have that one that comes.
That third line's been dominant all
so far,
series.
Exactly.
All series.
Oh, and by the way, Steven Stamkos hasn't even played yet. So I don't, and which, by the way, I feel really bad because that man can't stay healthy. He's like Gordon Hayward of the NHL. Yeah. That man cannot stay healthy.
Oh, my
and it kind
God.
of begs the question, how much longer can Tampa be okay with this?
Yeah.
Because remember, they're very much at the top of the salary cap. They're going to have to make moves at the end of the season. I'm not saying that you trade Steven Stamkos.
No.
But I think you consider it. Because again, how much longer? Like if the Lightning are having this much success without him, I don't really know.
Yeah, exactly and by the way, one of your best players has been Braden Point. So what are we talking about here?
Exactly. So I think you're seeing in that series in particular, the Blue Jackets are just tired. I think they're just tired. I think had they won that game 1. I think that they would be up. I think they would be up 3-1. I think it would have been
I agree.
I think it would have been difficult for the Lightning to recover from that. Losing again to Columbus and all that jazz. But I do expect Tampa to finish it off in Game 5. If it gets to a Game 6, I think you start getting a little bit nervous if you're Tampa Bay, because I think if you get to a Game 7 with obviously no home ice advantage, no crowd and everything, you're going to be thinking about the fact that you blew a 3-1 lead a lot more than you normally would. Columbus will smell blood. And don't think that John Tortorella is not going to have his team play its best game in Game 5. Because when you're down, that's what you're going to, that's when you get your best game. You saw that with Chicago in Game 4, and particularly Corey Crawford, which I think we'll get into in a minute. But
we will.
You're going to get their best game.
Oh, boy, they're making me feel stupid.
When you're in an elimination game, that's when your opponent is going to make that many more. It's going to take many more chances. It's going to be much more aggressive than they normally would be because they're trying to survive. That's what you're seeing. So Columbus could do that, but I think Tampa's just, in a way, I'm happy for Tampa because it's like, oh, thank God, they're exercising some of these demons. And they're like, what's funny? They're like the Cubs, a couple years ago where everybody was like, when are they finally just going to get over the hump and win a World Series? And finally in 2016 they did. It's like with Tampa, it's like, okay, Tampa started to be really good back in 2015 and they lost in the Cup final. Since then, they've choked. Like they've constantly choked. It's like, when are they going to get over the hump? They have more talent than most teams in the NHL. When is it all going to come together? How much longer can they keep this up before they have to get rid of a bunch of guys? That's a good question. This might be that last ride. I don't know. This could be the very last time that Tampa could do this before they have to blow everything up. So, but you got to exercise some demons when you're in the postseason, and this is one of them. So if Tampa can get through in Game 5, it's going to give them a lot of confidence because like, okay, we got through Columbus. Now let's just keep going. We got to keep going. That's the way they got to play like a desperate hockey team. They got to play like a desperate hockey team. Like, we cannot allow this to happen again.
Yep, absolutely not. I give them a whole lot of credit. So real quickly here before we get into Boston and all that other stuff that you just mentioned, Neil, you also have Colorado having a 3-1 series lead over the Arizona Coyotes in Colorado. I mean,
7-1 yesterday.
Can you really say any more about them? I mean, McKinnon, Kadri. I mean, I could go on. And Philip Grubauer has actually been playing really, really good. And Neil, I know you talked about if Grubauer can play the way that he's been playing, Colorado might make some noise. And so far, they have a 3-1 series lead over the Coyotes. And you also have two very competitive series here in Dallas and Calgary. That series is tied at 2 games apiece. And same with Vancouver and St. Louis. And by the way, St. Louis, they haven't even won a game in these playoffs up until these past couple of days. So they're starting to show a little bit of life, but Vancouver's got to step it up a little bit. I understand that Bo Horvat's probably been their best player so far, but their defense has to step it up a little bit if they want to compete with this St. Louis Blues. Because right now, the Blues are starting to show a little bit of life, defending Stanley Cup champs. I mean, we got ourselves a whole new series here. And boy, talk about a team that's making me feel stupid. The Blackhawks, really. I mean, talk about making me feel like a complete idiot. I mean, wow. Personally for me, I feel like I underestimated Vegas a little bit. I mean, I knew they were talented. I knew. But I don't know. Something tells me that the way Chicago looked against
Edmonton.
Edmonton. I'm sorry, Edmonton.
The Oilers, yep.
Something told me that they were going to come in like a house on fire, and so far, Vegas has done that. Vegas has definitely proven me wrong, and I got to give them a lot of credit. I mean, obviously, Chicago avoided the sweep. They won Game 5, and Corey Crawford stole the show for Chicago.
Oh boy.
But let's see if Chicago can. I doubt it at this point. Yeah. We'll see if they can actually maybe win the next game and maybe try to make a comeback. But like I said, I doubt it because I expect Vegas to finish it off at this point. But hey, I got to give Vegas a whole lot of credit here. They're proving me wrong, and let's see if Vegas can keep this up. But overall, you got really, really exciting stuff in these playoffs. And like we said with Boston, I mean, this team hasn't really looked the same ever since coming into these playoffs, and they have a 3-1 series lead over Carolina. But that Game 4, I mean,
that was weird.
You're down 2-0. You're down 2-0.
Yep.
Third period comes. You score 4 unanswered goals. I mean, obviously Carolina got one with like a minute and something change left. But that's not the point.
It is.
Boston was down 2-0. They stunned Carolina in the third period and win the game 4-3. I don't know if this has been look, the Bruins are known for coming back from deficits like this, but the fact that they didn't look like this the entire time they've been in these playoffs, I mean, it just goes to show you that, as you say, Neil, hockey is a magical sport. You never know what can happen. And so far with Boston, magical things are happening for them right now. And I hate to say it because I'm a Ranger fan, but I got to give Boston a whole lot of credit here. They're proving most of the critics wrong.
So I'm going to have to catch up with you because I wanted to go through the other series that you had mentioned before.
Sure.
So I'm going to backtrack too. I think you started with Colorado and Arizona.
Yes.
I liked Rick Tockett's quote after losing Game 4 when they lost 7-1. He goes, "It was men playing against boys," basically.
Yeah.
And quite frankly, they did. The question was in that game was, did the Avalanche finally solve Darcy Kemper, or did the defense of the Coyotes give up? And I was talking with Richie Flores, who's one of the guys on Richie and Corey, which is the Arizona Coyotes podcast on the Hockey Podcast Network yesterday. And he said, quite frankly, the team gave up. I think the team felt that they did not feel like they could win this series, win that game. And Colorado was just the better team. And Nathan MacKinnon is ridiculous. Even if he doesn't score, which, I mean, he still did.
And by the way, MacKinnon should win the Hart Trophy this year. Just saying.
I think Panarin deserves a little bit more, but that's me.
Who?
Artemi Panarin.
You could definitely make the case, but over MacKinnon?
Yeah.
I don't know, man.
Well,
I'd be very happy to see Panarin win it, but MacKinnon?
Yeah.
Come on now.
Well, yeah. I mean, but that's a topic for another day.
Anyway, yeah.
I mean, we'll probably have an episode for rewards and all that.
Yeah.
At some point, but Colorado's just a better team. Arizona really, they made a lot of people happy by knocking out Nashville. It was great and good for them to make the playoffs when, again, one of the handful of teams that wasn't expected to make the playoffs, but their main guys, Arizona, are not doing anything. Taylor Hall he comes and goes.
Eh.
Bill Kessel, he comes and goes. I don't know what happened to Clayton Keller. I don't know where he is. Dvorak, Darcy Kemper is their team, basically.
Pretty
and I
much.
think he's gotten burned out because he's had to have games where he's had to make a lot of really difficult saves and be consistently good. And you can't allow your goaltender to be doing that. Otherwise, you just end up like Henrik Lundqvist. It's the same thing over and over again.
Yep, absolutely, yes.
It's that problem. So I think that it was a combination of many different things. I think that Colorado's better. I do think that in some regards, the Coyotes gave up. And I think Darcy Kemper is doing all he can, and I think he just is getting burned out. Do I think that Rick Tocchet goes with Antti Raanta in Game 5? No. I think you go back to Darcy because Darcy got you there. Darcy's a big reason you're even in the postseason right now.
Yep.
You got to go back to him.
And if he didn't get hurt, he could be up for a Vezina trophy right now.
Man, you really like stealing my quotes, don't you? You really like stealing my quotes. That's what
I didn't even know you said that.
Oh, I said that on Twitter, and you even liked it. I'm calling you out. Anyway, but yeah, I mean, if Darcy Kemper didn't get hurt and continued to play the way he was playing, yeah, I think he would have been up for the Vezina, but that's just not how it goes. That's hockey for you. But yeah, I mean, it's one of those things, and I don't think Colorado's going to go past 5 games. I think they'll finish it off in Game 5, and that'll be the end of it.
Right, yeah.
What was the next series you were talking about?
Dallas and Calgary.
Dallas and Calgary. This is one of the ones that people are just not talking about very much because neither fan base, I mean, not neither fan base. I guess it's just because the amount of stars, no pun intended, but the amount of stars on both teams is not that much. I mean, obviously, the stars have Tyler Seguin, Jamie Benn, John Klingberg, Miro Heiskanen. They have a lot of talent, no question about it. The Calgary Flames have Kachuk, Johnny Gaudreau, Sam Bennett. They have, Mangiapane. They have talent. This has been a series that has been much more physical than any other series I've seen, and that's what you're seeing. You're not seeing high-scoring games. You're seeing teams go back and forth. That Game 4 was exciting from the start to finish, ended 4-3. I loved it. Joe Pavelski, a former San Jose Shark, had his first career playoff hat trick, which I was surprised that he had he didn't have one before. But you think about Calgary. They were just seconds away from taking a commanding 3-1 lead in that series. Blew it. And I kind of wonder if that's going to be something that's going to affect them going into Game 5 today, which is, we're recording this on the day that they're playing Game 5. It'll be interesting to see how the Flames come out in the first 10 minutes. I always like to see how teams come out in the first 10 minutes. We'll see if Calgary can do it. Kachuk didn't play Game 4. He was hurt. Is he coming back for Game 5? I do not know. I have not heard anything yet, so I don't really know. We'll see. But he definitely is missed by the Flames. No question about it.
Absolutely.
That's a fun series. I like the physicality. I like the competitiveness back and forth. The goaltending's been, relatively solid on both ends. And would I be shocked if it went 7? Not necessarily. But we'll see. We'll see. Back and forth. It could be a flip of a coin at this point, the way that series is going.
Right.
Keep with that. Then you have Chicago and Vegas. I mean, look, up until Game 4, Vegas had not lost a game since coming back. They went 3-0 in the round robin, and they won the first 3 games. So they were 6-0 going into Game 4. This is, without a doubt, the most talented Vegas Golden Knights team in their very short history.
I agree.
They're very deep. They have 3-4 lines that can really be productive. Also, they are doing the same thing that the Carolina Hurricanes do, and that is that they swap goaltenders. Robin Leonard played very well in the first 2 games. And, yeah, you could have obviously put him in for Game 3, but Pete DeBoer decided to put in Marc-Andre Fleury, who was just as good.
Right.
And then he also played Game 4. Oh, no, Robin Leonard played Game 4. So do you go back to Marc-Andre Fleury for Game 5? I don't think it matters. It really doesn't matter because their defense has been very solid. The Blackhawks won the game. The game-winning goal was a fluke goal where Leonard tried to bat it away with his helmet and he knocked it into his own net. That happens.
Yeah.
So, and Corey Crawford would just not allow Vegas to score another goal. It just wasn't going to happen. And I think Vegas, after a while, recognized that you know what? It's not our game. This is his game. Chicago understands this. They got nothing to lose. Again, they weren't expected to be here. They weren't expected to beat Edmonton, and they did. They beat them in pretty convincing fashion, if you ask me.
Yep.
I also thought that, they would win a game or two early on, and it'd be 2-2 and not 3-1 right now, but that's how it is. Vegas got to be thinking about what happened just a year ago, being up 3-1 against San Jose and pretty much blowing it. I don't know if they're thinking about it. I certainly know if I was on that team, I would probably think about it very little, but if it gets to 3-2, I think you start getting very concerned if you're Vegas, because it's like, you had 3 games to none lead. You've been dominating. You even dominated game 4, even though you didn't win. We'll see how they come out in game 5. I think it's going to be fine. I don't think Vegas is worrying right now. Again, because Chicago is in elimination mode, they're going to come out and be as aggressive as possible. That's how they're going to be for the rest of the series, because every game is an elimination game for them. So you're going to get your opponent's best game when they are down to their last strike. They're down to their last game. So bottom line is that I think that Vegas is not worrying now. Again, they're going to get another one of, Chicago's best games. They're going to be a desperate hockey team. And if Vegas can just play, calm and the way that they're capable of playing, they should be fine. But if they underestimate the Blackhawks team a little bit, they're going to have a lot of problems. And, we don't know who's going to start in game 5 in net. I think now that Chicago's been able to win a game against Robin Lehner, even if they only scored 2 goals, I think that they now have some confidence, because also let's remember, that was also the first time Robin Lehner lost as a Vegas Golden Knight. He had won 3 games when he got, before the season was put on pause. And then he won 2 more. So he was 5, almost 6-0 before he lost that game. Do you go to Marc-Andre Fleury? Maybe. I don't know. We'll see what happens when the puck drops. I think they have like the 10 o'clock game, so that'll be wonderful.
Yeah.
But it's gonna be good. And if it gets to a 6th game, I don't know. You might have to start wondering if
might be a little cause for concern from Vegas.
Exactly. We'll see. We shall see. But hockey is such a magical and predictable sport. Things can change at the snap of a finger. And lastly, you were talking about Boston and Carolina. Yeah, that game 4 was interesting because, again, everybody was talking about how well James Reimer was playing in that game, and he was doing a really good job frustrating the hell out of Boston, and it did seem like that Boston was just not going to score. And then he scored a goal off of a hesitation by James Reimer. He came out of the net trying to clear the puck away.
Almost like a kamikaze move.
You could see he hesitated just a little bit, and that was the difference in that goal. And once he scored, you could see right away that Boston felt very confident. Then you saw that massive hit by Charlie McAvoy on Jordan Staal, which pretty much knocked Jordan Staal out of the game. And he's one of your better defensive forwards. And it just, you could see the life just was taken out of Carolina. And once they tied it, the Bruins tied it, which, by the way, it was tied by a kid who played at CBA and is also from Long Branch, New Jersey, Connor Clifton.
Yes.
Once they tied it, you knew that Boston was going to win that game. Whether it was going to be an overtime or regulation, you knew they were going to win that game. And then it got to 4-2. And, even when Carolina scored to make it 4-3, I just didn't think that Carolina had enough in them. And I think that with that game, instead of it being 2-2, it's now 3-1. I think Boston's got this one. I think Boston's got it. I think they're rallying around Yaroslav Halak, knowing that, Tuukka Rask made the choice to leave. David Pasternak's been unfit to play since he injured himself on a celebration after game 1. They have a good amount of adversity against them, but they've rallied around each other and have been able to do well. Brad Marchand is still playing well. Zdeno Chara is still being the guy that he is. Charlie Coyle has clearly been a factor, especially physically. I think so. We'll see. Jake DeBrusk.
By the way, I don't mean to cut you off, Neil. I apologize, but when Zdeno Chara's career is finally over, that man is going to waltz into the Hall of Fame. Well, yeah, absolutely no question about it.
Yeah, there's no question about it. And I think, but at the end of the day, I think Boston's got it. I think they'll finish it off in Game 5. And Carolina, I think, is just it's going to be very tough for them emotionally to come back from that type of game. You had it, and you let it slip away. And people were saying, what is it going to take for James Reimer to win a game against the Bruins when it really matters in the postseason? Because it just feels like, and I think Brian
Boucher.
Brian Boucher kind of said it best. It felt really similar to what happened to James Reimer back in 2013 when I think it was 2013 when the Bruins were down 3-0 in Game 7 against Toronto and came all the way back and won an overtime.
Yes.
It felt eerily similar to that. I expect probably the Hurricanes to go with Peter Mrazek at Game 5. I mean, Rob Brindamore's been doing that, going back and forth the whole time. But I do think the difference maker in that game was, first of all, the high stick goal that was waved off. It was obvious that it was a high stick, no question about it. Would have made it 3-0. And then Nietzsche.
Yeah, wasn't that on Bjorkstrand?
No, I'm talking about the goal that Carolina had scored, but it was called off because of a high stick.
No, I'm saying did Oliver Bjorkstrand score that goal?
Bjorkstrand is on the Bruins, not the Hurricanes.
Whatever. I might as well just walk off the show right now.
But then you have Nijis, who misses a wide open net, and had he gotten his stick on that puck, he scores. It's 3-0 late in the second period. Boston doesn't make that comeback, in my opinion. So the fact that it was 2-0 going into the third, I think the Bruins still felt pretty confident. And then they got a goal off of a mistake by James Reimer, who had been pretty much perfect up until that point.
Right.
The bottle fell out. That was it. And I don't really expect Carolina to recover from that. But I've seen crazier things happen. But I think Boston's got this one in the bag.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely expect them to. I definitely expect them to finish it off. I mean, they've definitely proven me wrong. And I mentioned, I mentioned Vancouver and St. Louis earlier as well, Neil. You know that Ryan O'Reilly has 5 points in 2 games? I mean, it just shows you why that man was much deserving of the Conn Smythe Trophy last year. I mean, this guy's been he's been their best player in this entire series. And they still don't have Tarasenko.
Well, that's the thing. Well, here's a couple things I'll say. First of all, it was a surprise that St. Louis came out and started with the round robin and the first 2 games of this playoff very poorly. Very, very poorly. They didn't look like the team that, it looked like at times they quit. It almost seemed like they just were not ready to go.
Yeah.
And the difference maker in the first 2 games was the tremendous job on the power play by Vancouver. They scored 5 goals in the first 2 games on the power play. They've scored a measly 1 goal since then on the power play. They went 0 for 6 or 0 for 7 last night when they should have gotten at least 1, maybe 2. And Ryan O'Reilly put the team on his back again. And if St. Louis is able to make a long run again to the in the postseason,
that man's going to help them
very well make a case to be Conn Smythe winner again. You can very well make that case. To me, the biggest difference was when Craig Berube made the decision to bench Jordan Binnington and putting in Jake Allen. And I'm so happy for Jake Allen because I remember a couple of years ago when everybody was talking about Jake Allen being, the future goalie for the St. Louis Blues. He was their franchise goalie. And then Jordan Binnington came in and stole the show and stole the spotlight. And Jake Allen, I think, is going to be a free agent at the end of this year. So this is a tremendous opportunity for him to showcase that he could still be a number 1 goaltender. And I think he went something like 18-4 or something really impressive in the regular season. So Jake Allen has been very calm since he got into the net for the Blues back in Game 3, and he has frustrated the Canucks shooters. And another big difference, the Blues are blocking a lot more shots. They're not giving Vancouver a lot of space to move the puck. Even on the power play, they're just not giving them much of anything. And so as a result, Vancouver is getting very discouraged, very frustrated. I would not say that Bo Horvat has been the best player on the Vancouver Canucks in this postseason. I think it's Quinn Hughes. Quinn Hughes, prior to Game 4, had a 6-game point streak, which he was the 3rd defenseman in NHL history to have points in his first 6 games in the postseason, or 6 consecutive points in his debut, other than I think Al McInnes, and I forgot the other guy's name, but that was one of them. I mean, that shows you how good he really is and how good he will continue to become.
Are you talking about Brett Hull, by the way, the one you're forgetting about?
No, because he's not.
No, okay.
He's a defenseman I'm talking about.
Oh, defenseman. Okay, I'm sorry.
Quinn Hughes has done really well. I think Elias Pettersson, who has 3 goals in the series, has been very good. I think that, JT Miller has still been very solid. And I also think Markstrom has played well. He hasn't been bad. He's been very solid, okay? And they haven't been blown out in the last 2 games.
Right.
They could have very well won game 3 in overtime and taken a 3-0 lead, okay?
Oh.
They only lost 3-1 in game 4. We have to remember, this is a young, inexperienced Vancouver team that's on the rise, that's still learning how to win. So they were up 2-0, and it was definitely a surprise. But it's only 2-2. Vancouver still has to lose 2 more games before they can go home. So Vancouver, they could turn it around in game 5. And I think that now that they've gone through 2 games, and now that they have a chance to, rest, focus, and recover, I think that they'll play a lot better in game 5. And again, you got to give St. Louis credit. They have several of their key players out, including Tarasenko and Ryan O'Reilly, Alex Pietrangelo, Braden Shen, Jake Allen have stepped up. You need guys to step up. Sammy Blais as well has stepped up very, very big time. Justin Falk, the former Carolina Hurricane, has had several good chances, several good jobs. He had a really good goal in game 3. So I think you're starting to see St. Louis get back to the way that they're capable of playing. Can they keep it up? I think they're capable of doing it. But I got to tell you this right now. If they slip up and they let Vancouver win game 5, I don't like my chances with St. Louis winning that series. I don't. Because if they give any sort of life to Vancouver, because they don't have very much life right now, they've been, they've really, lost a lot of momentum that they had after the first 2 games. It's going to be tough. But we'll see. If Vancouver can start to solve Jake Allen a little bit more and find a way to get through that difficult, stingy defense that the St. Louis Blues have had the last 2 games, they're gonna definitely have the advantage in that series. So we'll see. But it's a good series, and I wouldn't be surprised if it went the full 7.
Oh yeah, absolutely. That definitely now has 7 written all over it. But bottom line is so much excitement going on in the NBA playoffs and the Stanley Cup playoffs, and that will wrap it up for us here on the Bottom Line Podcast. If you have any thoughts on anything we discussed, and yes, it was a lot, we know, so let it soak in a little bit before you say anything. Let us know on Twitter at BottomLineWMCX, at the MVP Show, and on Instagram at BottomLineWMCX, hashtag BottomLine, voice message, anchor.fm, or the app. You know the deal there. And please leave a like and a comment down below if you're watching on YouTube. It helps us out tremendously. And please make sure you subscribe as well. Also on Apple, Google, and Spotify, wherever you listen to podcasts. Just include my first name, Jimmy, when searching for this podcast. And like we said earlier, please go support our friends in First to 11. The links are in the description down below this video to their YouTube channel and to their social media platforms as well. But Neil, coming up on the next episode, I'm going to school again because supposedly, what is it? The Champions League final taking place this weekend?
Champions League semifinal starts today. PSG versus RB Leipzig today, and I think the other game is tomorrow, or
okay.
I could be wrong. But after that, then we'll have the Champions League final. So we'll probably be able to get that episode in before the Champions League final. We'll know by then who's playing in the final. So
when is that? When is that? Friday? Saturday?
I don't know.
We'll have to find that out. But yes, I'll be going to soccer school, and the lesson will be the Champions League final. This should be very, very interesting. And of course, we'll have our good friends and Steve Durso and Garrett Novak back on, so it should be a ton of fun. For Neil Villapiano, I'm Jimmy Finizzi. This is the Bottom Line Podcast. See you in the next episode. Peace out.